Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So you want to become, and I'm your host Krishna Ranganathan. Today we have with us a storyteller, a writer at its heart, and a former brand custodian of Tata Sons, Harish Bhat. He's a long-time Tata leader, and he has been transforming businesses from Tata beverages to Titan to jewelry and many more. So I was coming while I was driving back here to Bangalore. I had a very vague memory of Office Secrets, the one which you had given a signed copy. I also remember him getting a signed copy, my dad, of Tata Stories.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Office Secrets was a very vague memory to me. So I was listening to it on Audible. And I remember the part where you explained, right? The 5 different types of speakers, like during meetings, for one being the critical one,
Yeah.
the one being the one who wants to share everything, right? So where when you wrote about it, how did
So, Krishna, that's a very interesting question. The entire book Office Secrets is made out of observations that I've had working in offices for 35 years. And in 35 years, I must have attended thousands of meetings.
Right.
So one is, of course, I participate in the meeting and I try my best to add value, but I also love observing people. And when you observe people over time, then I think people fall into a certain pattern. So, this classification of people in the meeting, the person who speaks too much, the person who wants to impress others, the person who is very critical, the person who wants to crack a joke and be seen as being clever, or the person who is very silent, all those have come out of my observations in meetings that I have been in. Then what I have done is I have given it a little bit of a humorous touch.
Right.
Because I think sometimes we are very serious in Indian offices. So looking at a bit of humor where we pull our own feet, that's very important. So Office Secrets is an irreverent book. It's come out of observations across many years of working.
I was able to, when I was listening to it, I was able to observe myself doing the same thing. I can recall, like, I have done this, done that.
Quite likely, because, one of the stories in Office Secrets about how people eat biscuits in offices.
Right, the meetings.
The meetings. But I have myself eaten biscuits like that. So in a way, I'm also talking about myself, not only about others.
Correct.
And my thought there is that if you pull yourself out of the office and look through some window, you will see so many humorous things happening, so many absurd things happening in offices that I think we should be aware of, and we should also accept. As human beings, we do all these things.
But when you're joining Tata, right, how was it feeling? How was your feeling?
I felt very good about joining Tatas. I felt very good when I finished my final interview, and then it was in Bombay House, the headquarters of the Tata Group. I still remember my final interview panel. There were people like Mr. Ratan Tata, Mr. Krishna Kumar, who were part of that panel. And then eventually that evening, they announced the names of the people who had been selected. And I was delighted to see my name in the final list of people who had been selected to join the Tata Administrative Service. This was way back in 1987. So I felt very good about it because I had heard a lot about the Tatas, and I had heard of them as a good company to work in. I also was a little apprehensive because I had never worked in a company before that. So I was a little apprehensive, and I wanted to give it my best effort and, prove that I could do things on the ground. And I was not just a theoretical MBA student coming out of college.
Correct. You have worked along the lines of beverages, jewelry, even inside many parts of Tata. Which would be your favorite? And
I started with marketing tea and coffee. That was my first assignment, selling and marketing tea and coffee. And your first assignment is always closest to your heart. So I think if you ask me which my favorite is, it would still be Tata Tea. I loved working with Tanishq and Titan. They came much later in my career, but Tata Tea is what I started with. And I particularly loved it, Krishna, because, we were underdogs at that time. We were such a small company fighting against a giant like Unilever in India, against Brook Bond and Lipton. We started with a 0% market share. And over the next several years, we reached virtually parity with Hindustan Unilever. So I think for that reason also, that's one of my favorite, memories and assignments. And the third reason is I was very young when I joined Tata Tea, 25, 26 years of age. Had the opportunity to work with some superb leaders, and what you learn from your first boss, what you learn from your first team always remains very etched in your mind.
The Tata Tea is a really, really important moment for you.
It is, and I would say it was my proving ground. It was where I learned all the basics of marketing. I might have done a lot of marketing courses in my business school, but this is where they actually got implemented. The application. So, for instance, one of the first brands I handled in Tata Tea was a regional brand called Chakra Gold Tea, which sells in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh. It's a strong Assam dust tea. In the marketing of Chakra Gold Tea, we were fighting against brands like Three Roses and Top Star from the Unilever stable. We learned how to be a challenger brand. We learned how to do things differently. We learned how to position the brand to address specific consumer needs. And over a course of time, it was very gratifying to see Chakra Gold pick up so much market share and so much volume, which in a way was proof that we were doing things correctly. Then I was asked to launch a brand at the bottom end of the market. We launched a brand called Tata Tea Agni, and Agni became a big success, which was also a very gratifying moment to me. Along the way, a couple of brands that I was associated with did not work out well, and in those failures also I think I learned a lot.
Speaking of marketing, son, what is one lesson of marketing that you would like to share?
So I would say, the most important piece of advice that I would give any aspiring marketer is keep the customer at the center. Customer needs should take top priority in your mind. Your product, your advertising, your communication, your pricing, your distribution, all that has to cater to that singular aspect, which is the need of your customer. And how can you as a marketer fulfill that need quite uniquely? Let me take tea, which was the first product that I worked with. Now, tea is made differently in Gujarat. It's made differently in Tamil Nadu. It's made differently in Kashmir. It's made differently in West Bengal. So unless you understand how tea is made there, and unless you understand how you can fulfill that particular need for tea in that particular state, you will never be able to have champion products in those states. This is equally true of other products as well. So figuring out the core need of the customer, the insight which leads to that, and then making sure that everything in your marketing mix is designed powerfully to serve that insight. That is the one advice that I would like to give any aspiring marketer.
In such a culturally diverse country like India,
yeah,
serving tea is very, very unique to each state, right? So there's a different way of marketing for each state.
That is true. Which is why Tata Tea may be a single brand in the whole country, but Tata Tea will have multiple blends, more than 20 blends maybe. The Tata Tea blend in Maharashtra will be quite different from the Tata Tea blend in Uttar Pradesh, will be quite different from the Tata Tea blend in, let's say, Bangalore. So the fact is that because India is so diverse, you also need diverse products to serve the customer. Not in every category, but in a category like tea, certainly yes. In a category like jewelry, certainly yes. It may not be equally true in a category like watches or in a category like cars. But in some categories, I think that diversity is very important for the core product. Certainly, you have to keep diversity in mind while advertising, while communicating to consumers. You have to talk the language of the consumer in a respective market. So yes, India in that sense is many, many cultures, many, many languages. It's a tapestry of many areas And marketers therefore have to customize to each area. You know, a carpet bombing of one approach for the whole of India typically will not work in many, many categories.
Sir, what does it take to be a brand custodian? For any company, that is.
Yeah. So a brand custodian's role is quite different from the role of just being a product marketer. What is a brand custodian? I served as brand custodian at Tata Sons of the Tata brand. A brand custodian has to do 3 or 4 things. First, a brand custodian has to understand what your brand is all about, has to understand the core idea of the brand, the history of the brand, the culture of the brand, the values of the brand.
Right.
And then the brand custodian has to ensure that these are protected without any dilution. This is particularly important in a group like the Tata Group, where the Tata brand is used by so many companies. You have to ensure a consistency of usage. You have to ensure that the same values go into the brand, whether it's being used in company A or company B or company Z. So that's one important role. The second thing that the brand custodian has to do is to look at how to develop the brand for the future. People are changing. Consumers are changing. Gen Z in India, very different from Gen Alpha and very different from Gen X and Gen Y. So you can't have a brand which is only living in the past. The brand also has to adapt to the future, and the brand also has to carve out the future. Particularly important for a brand like Tata, which is more than 150 years of age. So the second role of the brand custodian is to develop the brand for the future. The third thing that the brand custodian has to do is ensure that the brand is promoted well. The brand has to be always salient in the minds of consumers. It has to always be young and exciting. It always has to be at the cutting edge of what consumers aspire for. That is the holy grail that marketers have to go for. So the brand custodian also has to ensure promotion of the brand. So I would say protection of the values of the brand is one part of the brand custodian's role. Second is development of the brand for the future. And the third is the promotion of the brand. All these 3 have to come together in the brand custodian's role. And this is a multidimensional role. It requires a very good understanding of history, of culture, of marketing, of branding, of, how to evolve brands for the future, because you're not dealing here with a new brand. Typically, as a brand custodian, you're dealing with a brand which has already been established.
Correct.
So it's a multidimensional role, but a very exciting role. Very exciting role. And I was personally very privileged that the Tata Group assigned me the role of brand custodian for the Tata brand, which, as you know, is India's most valuable brand.
So let's now look at your facet of an author.
Yes.
So you have authored around 8 books, right?
That's correct.
And what is your experience about writing, right? So one must be, well, one is very knowledgeable. That's my perspective. And
Okay. So I think first, I'm passionate about writing. In a creative art like writing, passion is very important. You have to feel the urge to write, to be an author. And you have to feel happy when you're writing. And you have to feel a sense of joy when you write. And so this is something that has been in me since my childhood. Like for some people, they're very happy with music, some people with dance, some people with travel. You're very happy recording this podcast. So similarly for me is with writing. I enjoy writing. But to me, passion and joy is only one part of the writing voyage. What I've understood, having authored 8 books now, is that if you have to write really well, you also need a lot of discipline. I would think becoming good at anything requires discipline, requires practice. But this is true of writing particularly because writing is a lonely voyage. You are in front of your laptop computer writing yourself. It's not that you're in a meeting with 10 people.
correct.
So your ability to focus and write requires a lot of discipline. And, when I was in a full-time job with the Tata Group, I would not get time to write from a Monday to a Friday. Most of my writing would happen on the weekend. That's the only time I would get. But I would ensure that every Sunday morning, I would sit down at my laptop computer and write and not get up until I had written 1000 words. Now that requires a lot of discipline.
Right.
So the second part of the experience of being a writer is that discipline is essential
Right.
to an art like writing and also to many other arts. The third part of being a writer is, I was discussing this just before coming into this podcast. As a writer, you need to also have a lot of humility. Every time you write something, there may be pieces or books that your readers love, and there may be pieces or books that your readers don't like. So each time I write a new article or I write a new piece of poetry or a new book, I have to be open to both acceptance and rejection. And I have to take both in my stride. I cannot ask my publisher tomorrow, why did you rate this book better than that? They may give me a few reasons, but at the end of the day, I think they may love a book and they may say, we will publish this right away. Or they may say, we don't like this. And then you have to absorb that and move forward and make the changes required or move on from the project itself. So I think you need humility to be a writer. You cannot be arrogant in your mind and yet be a successful writer. And finally, I think a lot of good writing comes from observation. And therefore, writers, I think, have to be good observers of life in general. When you observe life, there are so many stories that sit in life, and then you're able to bring those stories onto your pages. But without human observation, I would think a writer's mind will go sterile. So the fertility of a writer's mind actually depends on how keen an observer of himself or herself, of the world around, of the people in the world around you is the writer.
So let's get to rapid fire. A book that you carry around every day.
Would be, Swami and Friends by R.K. Narayan.
Okay. One habit that has changed your career.
I would think discipline. The ability to be disciplined in everything I do.
A brand that you admire.
Okay. Let me name for you a brand outside the Tata Group that I admire.
Sure.
Otherwise, I would say Tata to begin with. But outside the Tata Group, a brand I admire would be Apple.
Why?
Because I think Apple has been able to build a fascinating marriage between technology, design, and emotion. It's very, very challenging to build that connect between all these three. And I also think Apple is very sharp in what it does.
Right.
There is a certain sharpness to it, to its positioning, to the way it communicates, which I greatly admire.
Okay. So for a 19-year-old who is an aspirant MBA, right? What should they learn to do first?
I think for a 19-year-old who wants to get into an MBA program, the first thing that they should learn is the value of focus and the value of in-depth study. Okay, today we live in a world full of distractions. The mobile phone is probably our biggest distraction, social media and everything else. And therefore, I have found that the attention span of young people today is perhaps shrinking because of these distractions. But if you want to do really well in your MBA, in your MBA entrance and thereafter in your MBA program and thereafter in your career, you require a lot of focus. You require to shut out the distractions around you. I'm not saying it's bad to be on social media. Please be on social media. I'm a strong votary of being on LinkedIn myself. But I'm saying when you need to focus, you need to focus. So getting that focus into your being as something that you will do whenever required, I think is very, very important for MBA aspirants. The other aspect that I think young people should have if they aspire to do an MBA is a mind which looks at different parts of the universe, different parts of the world. And MBA is very much unlike a very specialized research degree. In an MBA, you study economics, you study finance, you study production engineering, you study marketing, you study IT and information services. You will study people management and organizational behavior. So when you study a gamut of so many different disciplines, your mind needs to be open to influences from all sides. It cannot be a single track mind.
Hmm. If you could go back in time and visit the 25-year-old you,
Yeah.
what's one piece of advice you would give?
I would give my younger self. I presume you're saying what advice would I give my younger self? I would say give a lot more importance to the way I interact with people. People skills are probably the most important thing you carry into your career. Technical skills you can learn. I can still learn marketing skills as I am working. And indeed, I did learn marketing skills. But our ability to work closely with people, our ability to motivate people, our ability to get along with people and yet ensure that the job is done, our ability to inspire people later in life, our ability to motivate people to do extraordinary things, uh, our ability to dust away the chips from our shoulders and say, I will work along with you in the marketplace, our ability to understand people, understand the emotions of people, empathize with people, be generous towards people, and yet ensure that all the targets that are in front of you are pursued assiduously. So I think the entire area of people interaction and people management, I could have done differently and perhaps much better during the first few years that I was in my job.
So people management is also a very different task, if you ask.
It is. It is. People management is very, very different and probably
The most complicated one of all.
it is the most complicated because every human being is different from another.
Yes.
You may work with one person today, you may work with another person tomorrow, and they will be different people altogether. So your ability to adapt, your ability to manage different teams differently, your ability to cut through what people are saying and understand what lies at the core of the issue, your ability to inspire a team and make sure that the team feels they're working towards a purpose, a genuine purpose which they will deliver to. Your ability to ensure there is perfect execution in a team, that people bring all their energies to do what is required in a perfect manner. All these are people related skills. So yes, it is challenging, but it is also the most fulfilling, Krishna, because when people that you work with grow in their careers and do wonderful things in their careers, I think nothing can be more fulfilling for me today than to learn that people whom I have worked with in the past have become CEOs of companies, have done very successfully in running businesses. That I think is perhaps the most fulfilling part of one's job and career.
And as we wrap up, I would like to ask you one last question.
Of course.
After such a long spanning career, how do you define success? Being an author or be it from Tata?
Yeah, very interesting question, and thank you for asking me. For me, I think in initial years, success was all about have I met a target? Have I delivered the little later in my career, it was about have I delivered the profits required and the revenue growth required. But today, as I've crossed into my 60s and I look back, I would say my definition of success is have I added value to the people around me? Have I added value to the teams who have worked with me? Have I added value to my colleagues? As an author, have I added value to my readers? And adding value means doing something which elevates their lives or their minds. So adding value to others is, I think, why we eventually live our lives and what makes our lives so fulfilling. Because if we were doing everything for ourselves, we probably in the short term feel happy, but in the long term, you would say, why am I living? if I am doing all this just for myself. But when you add value to others and you bring a smile onto someone else's face, or you inspire someone to do something new, or you elevate a person and make them more positive about their lives, then you feel that you have done something which is worthwhile. And there is a purpose to being alive.
Like the generosity factor that you mentioned.
Yes, it could be the generosity factor. I think generosity is one of the most underrated attributes of great leaders. But generosity is important. Generosity is not just giving money to others. Generosity is giving time to your colleagues, giving attention to your colleagues, making sure that if someone is going through a tough phase, you reach out even more to that person. Generosity is about sometimes going out of your way to surprise that person with something that he or she requires. So generosity is very important, but so is kindness, so is focus, so is your ability to work very hard, which is also very important for a leader. So is your strategic acumen. So leadership is actually a combination of so many different attributes, which is why you find many good leaders but few great leaders.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time today. I mean, it's actually really inspiring and fascinating to me.
Thank you, Krishna. You have conducted this interview very, very well, and it's been a privilege to be a guest on your podcast. And I hope that the viewers and listeners on this podcast find some value in what I have responded to you over the course of this interview.
And I think they will definitely will.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and may I wish you all the very best.